Thank you for joining us at DataCon LA. Welcome to a blockchain for master data management. My name is Hestia, your host, and your co-host today is Apurva. Please be mindful of our COVID regulations and keep your mask on. Also silence your phone during the session. Don't hesitate to raise your hand if you have any questions. And the session is currently streaming via Zoom and will be recorded, and it will be available online in a few weeks. And today we have our guest, Chekuri. He is the founder and CEO for togetherMDM. Thank you, Chuck. Come on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the session on blockchain for master data management. We're going to talk about the need for blockchain, why blockchain is important and what blockchain is, and also how blockchain is going to transform our business. And then finally, I'll get into a little bit more detail into master data management and why blockchain is needed for master data management. My name is Chekuri. I'm the founder of togetherMDM, and we built this company just to solve this specific problem. So, where do I go next? Yes. What happened? This is the wrong slide. I think we have the wrong set of slides.
That's the one.
Okay, no worries. So blockchain is transformational, because when we say transformational, we have to understand why blockchain is transformational. Because when I say blockchain is transformational, we have to understand why it is transformational, how it's going to transform, and what will it get us in the end. So if you think about why it will transform, one of the things we have been doing in the last 5 years is AI and ML, right? AI and ML is a lot of data-driven. And the other thing we were doing is automation, right? These two are like the big driving factors in the industry. And one of the things is what is holding them back? What is holding them back is data quality, data integrity, and the complexities. These are the challenges that are holding them back. And we are already doing a lot of data-driven decisions. Particularly, we are okay with Tesla driving the car, right? So we will be okay with businesses running, right? And this type of automation is only possible with blockchain. Blockchain is basically automates a lot of the agreements between different people. And that is exactly what we need, because we want to be able to automate our business. And that is why the blockchain is, people are pushing the way blockchain is going. And then how does blockchain transform? It will transform just like any other transformation that's happened in the past. Initially, what happens is there will be a lot of excitement. And then there will be a lot of, it will be difficult. Once that phase goes through, there will be a lot of public adoption, right? Public will be very excited to use it. And then there will be a lot of innovations that happen in that space. And then the B2B adoption happens. So blockchain is going through those things, because right now there are almost about 90,000 startups that were started up as of December 20. And a lot of them failed. So it's very difficult. And but still people are getting excited, putting a lot of stuff on the blockchain. And there are also a lot of technological improvements that's happened, right? Back in 2018, when I wanted to test an idea on blockchain, it took me 4 months to just write the code and test it. In 2022, I could do it, I could test an idea in 2 weeks, right? So that's how much technology is adding up. Then I said it's going to be difficult. So blockchain is really today is like AOL in 1989. Back in 95, getting on AOL, internet, you need an ISP, right? It wasn't easy. Now AOL, like, internet is on your phone. Similarly, blockchain is, you have to have a wallet, you have to have private keys, and it takes a lot of effort to get on. It's not easily available. And a lot of people are actually using it, right? There are about 80, oh, so I don't have that. So my slides are messed up, sorry. So there are about 800 apps that you could go out and use today, right? Then if you go to the app store, you have a lot of apps. You can go to YouTube. There is an app called DApp, a DApp called DTube, very similar to YouTube, right? You could go in and watch a video. It's all on blockchain. So there's a lot of public consumer adoption that is happening. And then also B2B customers are warming up, right? There's a lot of interest on B2B customers, and we are going to talk about it and how master data management is going to solve that specific problem. One of the things that you'll notice is this is growing like very fast. And when internet first started, those are people who got on the bandwagon early, very, very, very profitable. They made a lot of money. It's like eBay was started in 1995, even though the internet was really slow, right? PayPal started in 1998. Mark Cuban did his simple radio broadcast in 1999, right? So there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of promise that is out there for blockchain today, right? And if you get on it, you will be able to make a very good successful career out of it and a good business out of it. So let's talk about healthcare, right? What will blockchain get us? Okay, it's transforming. We know why we need it. We want to automate business, but how is it going to impact? Here in this chart is a simple diagram showing three major stakeholders in a hospital, like in US healthcare. And this is without blockchain today, right? So we have the dotted lines are basically agreements between provider and patient. The solid lines are the data flows and the movement of the money. These agreements between the payer and the provider and the patient and the things are managed by these blue boxes. These are like big IT processes that they spend. I believe today we spend about, I think, $500 billion, right? It's called billing and insurance related costs, right? We spend $500 billion between 286 on the provider side and some 220 billion on the payer side. We spend $500 billion just doing this process, right? And what you don't see here is the bank that actually moves the money with them. So what is great about blockchain is you can enforce these contracts, right? And it can also make the payments. And all of that can be solved with a blockchain in the middle. When you put a blockchain, you can pretty much get rid of the three processes on the payer side and the two processes in this thing. And in healthcare, I made this very simple, but there are a lot of other processes. We could apply the same technique. Go ahead.
What is a smart contract?
A smart contract here is not the agreement between them, but it is a way to program the blockchain, right? So you can actually write code on this blockchain nodes that you actually can program it to make sure the contracts are enforced, the payments are made. And if you can do this with blockchain, you actually don't need a bank, right? So this has a potential to save almost at least $250 billion with blockchain. And that is, and this probably will happen in the next 10, 15 years. Right? And this again depends on all the innovations that needs to happen. Right? And like I said, B2B businesses are really trying to get into. So let's get deeper into master data management. Right? Let's try to understand what master data management is. Oh, so when you have this thing more popular, people will have more choice. right? And this will be more pervasive.
Is this progressive thing? Do you want to keep the Q&A to the end? Or,
No, you can ask questions.
the previous slide? Oh, yeah. Is there a reason that what is the meaning of the red being to benchmarks and those?
Yeah, we can get rid of those.
Oh, you can, oh,
Yeah, we can get rid of those. With blockchain, we don't need them anymore. Right? So let's talk about what is the dominant of idea of MDM, right? MDM is all about a single source of truth. So this is what happens in a hospital, right? A patient comes in, he's a registered, and they call the doctor, insurance, to see if the patient is there or like insured or not. And then he's admitted, then he's treated, and then a claim is processed and a payment is processed, right? When a patient goes through all of that, there is a provider record attached to each one of them, right? And this provider record can change along the way. And when it changes, a version of that provider has to go along with the, right? Next claim comes in and the provider, next claim gets a different provider version. So eventually you'll have multiple versions of a provider record. Now, at the end of the day, when you analyze all this data and you have multiple versions of a provider record, it becomes very hard to analyze which is the right provider record. And that is why we need a single source of truth. And to manage that single source of truth, we have what we have is called a master data management. And this master data management is really involved in governance, policies, standards, and tools. For this, we spend today in 2022, $16 billion globally.
Do you want this?
30% of that is in.
If you want it.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, that's 30% of that is in the US, right? And they are projected to go to $34 billion just to manage master data banks, right? And our goal is to reduce that, right? We can't keep spending more and more on master data management. So we have to find a way to reduce it. So this is a very complex and a very expensive way to master it. And I was at a conference a month ago, Southern California Chief Data Officer, and one of the sessions was on master data management. And we were talking to all of them. Not a single person was happy with the master data management solutions, right? So we had to, there are so many tools, and there are also managing a bunch of master data type of records in there. And there is no accepted best policies or best case, best practices in there. So that is why it is very difficult and very complex. And there's a lot of people trying to manage master data. And that is why it's costing us so much. And because we want to do data quality and all of that, the cost keeps growing, right? So we need to bring this cost down. The only way we can do that is we have to redefine master data management. We have to rethink how master data is managed, right? And one of the reasons for, and there are people trying to use blockchain for master data management already last 3 years. Because to keep this master data management, a lot of business units have to agree on what is the golden record, right? They have to agree, they have to find out, they have to do dashboards. And all these agreements, somebody thought, okay, let's manage them in blockchain. And that managing all these agreements between different departments and different groups, it just makes it harder, right? So that's not the right way. So we have to figure out what is the best way to look at master data management. Now, we define the way we should look at master data is really look at, hey, what is the master data record? What is a transaction record? And what is the analytic record, right? Because there is a relationship here between the provider and the patient visits, right? How the visits use the provider data, how claims use provider data, how payments use provider data. There is an inherent relationship, and these relationships are very hard, and that is what master data management tries to do that, right? So if we understand these relationships better, then what we could do is probably program those relationships in blockchain and use smart contracts to manage that, right? So we have now changed the whole nature of the game where we are saying we have to manage these agreements between different stakeholders of the data, like the claims processing people, the payment people, the admissions people. Instead of all of them managing it, we could try to figure out what is the relationship between master data and transaction, right? If we understand that relationship very well, then we can actually program blockchain to do that effectively. So for that, we have to understand what is a transaction record, right? And then I'm going to walk you through both the transaction record and the provider record, right? Here is an example of an order. What happens is when somebody places an order, we create a transaction. When somebody, ships a product, it's a fulfillment record is created. And then when payment is made, there's a transaction settlement. And then there is a customer. So as a customer goes through your business, you're creating a transaction record. So you're creating more and more these transaction records. And what is interesting is these transaction records only exist within the company. Another company doesn't care about your sales record, right? So it is always within this same company that record is valid. And they are also need very fast systems, high volume systems, because you get millions of customers every year on a big one. So this number of records, massive, like a transaction records keeps growing and growing and growing, right? So this is the nature of a transaction record. Now let's look at, I took an example, from a different industry, the provider record. Now the provider record is a type of master data, and it is really in different, it exists, a provider record is created when a provider gets out of medical school, right? He exists outside the organization. And this provider record, when he joins the hospital, he goes into the hospital. And when the claim goes, that provider record goes out. So this is a cycle of a provider record. Now this provider record has a relationship with the visit, with the admission, with different transaction records, right, in a hospital like this. So what we want to really do is put all of that master data into a blockchain, right? And then we manage the relationship between the patient and the claim, or a provider and the claim, location and the claim. Like we have managed these individual relationships, and that can be done here in the blockchain, right? The blockchain can then be programmed to manage these relationships. When we do that, we don't really need all the people who are managing master data, right? And all the processes, all the tools. We pretty much automated all of that because these things are managed. So the way it works is the blockchain will have all provider data, which all the changes, right? Blockchain is immutable. It keeps all of the data without any, nobody can delete it. Everything is there. So when a claim needs to be processed, it can find the record it needs, and then that will go through. So that is what the solution looks like. And now if we extend this to the organization, it will do a lot more, right? It can now connect other agencies, other groups like credentialing agency. A provider is credentialed every 2 years. Right now, that process takes almost a month. But if you put it on blockchain, they can access it right away. So what used to take a month can go back in like a day or two, right? This is the kind of benefits we do. And we believe that if we implement blockchain, it has a potential of reducing that $500 billion to like, $100 million, right? That is the level of benefits you can get. And that is the type of advantage you can get. And I think with that, I'm pretty much done with how this thing works. Any other questions? Any questions you have? Please.
How does it differ from the legacy MDM? For example, IBM, Informatica, there are a lot of things they are also doing the MDM process. This one gets different from those.
Okay, so those processes, what they do is basically there is master data or like a version of the master data in different transaction systems, right? So that system all has a different version of the record, right? And when we try to analyze it, that record is we don't know which is the golden truth, right? And all those systems, what they do is they try to bring all of the data into one central copy. They see which ones are duplicate. They put some kind of a governance model on it. They have like different, they'll see how many duplicates are there, who can change what, how to coordinate that change, how do you finalize a master record, and then redistribute this master record to all the transactions, right? That is how existing things work. Now in blockchain, what happens is any change, any version, you can dump it into the blockchain, right? It can just change. All versions are there in the blockchain. Now I have 10 versions of blockchain, like a provider record in the blockchain. Now a particular claim knows its relationship with its version, right? That claim as it goes through, it's using that. And that is there, it can constantly refer to it. It says, hey, I need my record, it's there. I don't need to agree with 10 other people for that claim to go through. The next claim comes, it has its own version.
How about the performance? Because we are
Very good question. So blockchain today is very slow to write, right? It takes 15 seconds to write a transaction. But for reading, it's very fast. Right? And the master data doesn't change that often. Right? Provider data doesn't really change, except when he's suspended or when his license expires. Not as fast as a claim rate. So those things can be done very easily. Right? So because that latency, we don't have a problem because it doesn't change that much. But reading is as fast. And then we also can build in some interesting things to speed things up, like caching, as it's processing. So I don't see a performance problem with the solution that is there. Does that answer your question? Any other questions?
Yeah. So for the smart contracts that you're using basically to, I guess, enforce some of these policies, I guess, in different functional areas in a healthcare case, how are you, I guess, how are you protecting? Is there any person identifiable information or HIPAA related
Very good
governance constraints that would ultimately cause you risk if it is
Yes.
displayed on some sort of ledger?
Yes, that's a very good question. So what he's talking about is how does personally identified information, HIPAA regulations, how are they maintained, right? HIPAA says basically nobody can see private or personal information unless they're needed to see, right? Now, if you really think about it, who should see a patient's record? The people billing, the people treating or admitting, only those people, right? In blockchain, because you're linking this provider record and patient record only to those things, only those people will see. But when in the current master data management solution, what happens is people who are managing the duplicate record, they all get to see it, right? Which is actually more people are actually seeing today. And blockchain will actually eliminate that need for other people need to see it, except the patient doing that. And as far as protection, we do the same things like every other system does in terms of encrypting, like people who with access roles and permissions to actually see the data. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Anybody else? Good. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Let's stop this.
Thank you guys for being here, and thank you, Chuck, for your presentation. And if you guys have any questions, please speak directly to him, to Chuck, or
Yes.
contact Chuck. And
I can be reached at chuck@mdm, togetherMDM.com.
and please provide feedback using the form. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice presentation.